The Encounter in the Silent House, a tale of obsession and salvation. Night fell over New Haven with the weight of a damp blanket, smothering any hope of true rest. It was 2014, perhaps late 2013, but time seemed irrelevant against the exhaustion that dominated me. I've never been a party person. I always preferred the solitude of my small apartment, the silence broken only by the hum of the heater and the creak of the old floorboards. But that Friday, the few friends I had insisted. They said the party in Fairfield would be different, quieter, almost a social gathering, without the unbearable commotion of typical clubs. I resisted, citing Saturday's work, but eventually gave in, perhaps out of fear of losing the little human interaction I still had left. The drive to Fairfield was silent, each of us immersed in our own thoughts. When we arrived, an old house caught my attention. Unlike the abandoned houses I usually saw, this one seemed untouched by time, as if it was waiting, expectantly, for something only it knew. There were no signs of vandalism, no homeless people, just silence and a strange sense of preservation, as if time itself was afraid to touch it. I kept looking at it as we waited in line for the party, feeling a shiver that wasn't just from the cold. Inside the party, the atmosphere was oppressive. The music pulsed, people moved in clumps, laughing too loudly, feigning a joy that seemed artificial to me. In the back, an open smoking area offered temporary relief. I sat there, cigarette in one hand, beer mug in the other, observing the flow of people. That's when I saw her. She was a few chairs away, a discreet, almost ethereal beauty. Straight black hair, falling like a curtain over her shoulders. Simple clothes, unostentatious, but which accentuated a delicate silhouette. Her face was serene, her eyes dark and deep like bottomless pits. She wasn't the kind of beauty that draws attention through extravagance, but rather through naturalness, the purity of her features. Several men approached, offering drinks, trying to start a conversation, but she refused them all with a firm, almost maternal gentleness. I watched her for long minutes, hypnotized. A few times, she looked back at me. There was something magnetic in her gaze, something that made me feel vulnerable, exposed, as if she saw beyond the surface, beyond the masks we all wear. It was a gaze that cut like a hot knife through butter, leaving a feeling of dependence, of surrender. The fourth time our eyes met, I gathered my courage. I sat beside her without asking permission, driven by a force I didn't understand. She smiled, noticing my nervousness, and asked if I was okay. I stammered some answer, feeling my hands tremble. She ordered 2 whiskeys, and the conversation began. We talked about mundane things, music, work, movies. But there was a tension in the air, an electricity that seemed to grow with each word. Time passed strangely, as if we were in a bubble outside reality. She treated me with disarming kindness, and I felt increasingly drawn in, unable to resist the magnetism of those eyes. As the night progressed, she suggested we leave there for a quieter place. I agreed without hesitation, completely in her hands.
She mentioned that she was with friends at the party, but that they wouldn't notice her absence. There was something in her smile, something that made me want to please her at all costs. The moment we were leaving, a friend of mine approached me, worried. He warned me about the dangers of going out with a stranger, suggesting I might be being lured into a trap. I got irritated with him without knowing why and ignored him. I left with the woman, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. She suggested we go to the abandoned house, the one I had noticed when I arrived. I helped her jump the back wall, and in an inexplicable impulse, I broke down the back door with my feet. We went inside. Inside, the house was dark, dusty, but I didn't care. We went up to the second floor and entered a tiny room, almost a closet. Inside that cramped space, the atmosphere changed. The cold became intense, and a strange, almost rotten odor began to permeate the air. She kissed me with desperate urgency, as if she were starving. But something was wrong. My eyes, which would normally close in such a moment, remained wide open, attentive to the surroundings. Fear began to grow inside me, a feeling that something terrible was about to happen. I tried to break free, but she held me with surprising strength. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in around us. Suddenly, I heard the house door slam violently. It wasn't the door of the tiny room, but the main door downstairs. In a blink of an eye, she disappeared. 1 second before, she was there, pressing me against the wall. The next, she vanished without a trace.
I stood paralyzed, sitting on the floor, my pants down, fear completely dominating me. 10 seconds passed, maybe less, maybe more. Time lost all meaning. I got up with difficulty, adjusted my clothes, feeling that something was watching me through the walls. I ran out of the house without looking back, guided only by the instinct of survival. Upon leaving the house, I was met by my friend, who had seen me enter but hadn't seen anyone else leave. He was worried, asking if I was okay. I could barely respond, still overcome by terror. We went back into the party, trying to find the friends she claimed to have. We asked several people, but no one knew who she was. No girl with those characteristics was there. No one knew her. The sense of unreality increased. I sat in a corner, lighting one cigarette after another, trying to process what had happened. With each puff, I felt a pain in my chest, a memory of her little laugh echoing in my mind. The fear didn't leave me, and the feeling of having escaped something terrible was overwhelming. In the following days, her image wouldn't leave my head. Her gaze, her smile, her cold touch. I started to question my sanity, to doubt the reality of the facts. Had it all been a figment of my imagination? A delusion caused by fatigue, by drinking, by isolation? But my friend confirmed. He saw me enter the house with her, but he didn't see anyone else leave but me.
Time passed, but the memory of that night continued to haunt me. I returned to my routine, trying to forget, but it was impossible. Every time I lit a cigarette, I felt her presence beside me, like a silent shadow. I started avoiding parties, gatherings, any situation that could put me in contact with the unknown. In moments of weakness, especially when depression threatened to return, I felt her nearby. Once, returning home from downtown, I had the impression of seeing her across the street. She looked at me, smiled, and vanished into the shadows. The fear returned with full force, accompanied by a feeling of absolute vulnerability. I came to believe that there was something supernatural about that woman. A succubus, perhaps. An entity that feeds on the vital energy of men, especially the most fragile, the most vulnerable. I was an easy target at that time, emotionally debilitated, with an open energy field. Perhaps that's why she chose me. I began to research entities like succubi and incubi, ancient legends of demons that seduce and destroy their victims. The accounts were frightening, but also comforting, as they showed that I was not alone. Many men reported similar experiences, encounters with irresistible women, followed by sensations of exhaustion, fear, and a constant presence, as if they were being pursued by something invisible. Gradually, I began to rebuild my life. I sought help, both medical and spiritual. I started attending a church, talked to priests, participated in support groups. Faith became a shield, a form of protection against the evil I felt hovering over my existence. I learned to pray, to ask for protection, to strengthen my spirit.
Even so, her memory never completely disappeared. It was like a scar, an invisible mark that would stay with me forever. In moments of weakness, I felt her presence drawing near, as if she were lurking, waiting for a new opportunity to reach me. Over time, I began to see the episode from another perspective. Perhaps that night was a warning, a chance for redemption. Something or someone entered that house and made her disappear. A spiritual protector, an angel, perhaps even a deceased relative. I felt that I was saved from something much worse, from a fate I cannot even imagine. The experience made me more attentive to the supernatural, more sensitive to the energies that surround us. I began to value small signs, premonitions, intuitions. I learned to trust myself more, to listen to my body and my mind. I became more cautious, more selective about the people I let into my life. Loneliness, which was once a burden, became a conscious choice. I prefer the company of silence to the presence of people I don't truly know. I learned to value peace, tranquility, the security of my own space. Today, I look back and see how much I've grown. Fear has given way to wisdom. Vulnerability has transformed into strength. The experience taught me that evil exists, but that good is also always present, ready to intervene when we least expect it. Faith, intuition, and courage are our greatest weapons against the forces of darkness. The memory of that night still frightens me, but it also strengthens me. I know I was chosen, in some way, to go through that. Perhaps to learn, perhaps to warn others about the dangers of the unknown. I share my story not out of vanity, but as a warning. The supernatural is closer than we imagine, and salvation can come from where we least expect it. If you have ever felt that something was wrong, that an invisible presence was hovering over your life, don't ignore the signs. Seek protection, strengthen your faith, trust your intuition. The world is full of hidden dangers, but also of invisible protectors, ready to save us when we need it most. The experience taught me never to underestimate the power of the supernatural. Evil can present itself in a seductive, irresistible way, but there is always a way out, a chance for redemption. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to seek support, to strengthen your spirit. Life is fragile, and the line between the real and the supernatural is thinner than we imagine. If you have made it this far, take this advice with you. Take care of your spirit. Protect your energy. Don't let yourself be seduced by the unknown. Evil can hide in the most improbable places, in the most charming people. But good, silent, and patient is always ready to act. Trust yourself, value your intuition, and never forget, sometimes salvation is closer than we think.